And here's our next speaker. See her backstage, the lovely Gibson. She is Senior Vice President, Product Data and Analytics and Product Planning and Execution at Equifax. She's a global corporate diplomat passionate about building bridges and improving operations between business and technology to drive progress and results. She has over 20 years of experience in strategic planning, delivery, and operations for global IT, communication, and marketing teams. She has built a career pioneering enterprise solutions in both government and private sector roles. She will walk us through how to build a board of directors and the reasons why it is so important in her talk, building a board of directors to ensure your growth and development. The lovely, very excited to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, thank you to Liv. I was enjoying her presentation, and she had some really great nuggets there. And thank you, Anna, for inviting me. This is really exciting. So I chose this topic because, frankly, in my own career right now, I've been leaning heavily on my own board of directors. So I thought it would be a good topic to show that even when you get to executive leadership like myself, having that board of directors, that BOD, to support you and help you navigate is really critical. And I think it jumps off really well from Liv's topic about building your own career. So just a little bit about my role at Equifax. Part of my responsibilities, because I know my title is really long, is I'm responsible for our storyline to our board of directors at Equifax. So for product, DNA, and technology, my responsibility is to make sure all of the executive reporting that we send to our board and to our CEO gets pulled together. We have a clear storyline. And that my chief technology officer and the CEO, when they meet with the board, they have the facts, they have the progress, and they can give us the insight that we look so much to the board of directors to provide, based on what the noise in the street might be, what the concerns of our investors might be, as well as insight on how we can actually make progress, where we may need to pivot, and also give us encouragement to say, hey, you're on the right track. We understand this might be challenging, but oh, wow, look what we've won here. Look, we've made gains here. So having that responsibility has made it even more apparent on the importance and the cultivation of having your board of directors. So when I say board of directors, I'm thinking of, what's that support system around your career? And this is bigger than just having maybe your friends and some colleagues, but this is really having that right mix of mentorship, that right mix of sponsorship, as well as those who can see and bring insight to you, because at no doubt, often what we are experiencing is with our heads down, we're focusing on work, we're focusing on growing our career. And sometimes there's insight and opportunities that we need people who understand where we're trying to go and what we're trying to do can actually bring to us and bring to our table. So, first off, that's what it is. And then second, how do you build one? So even if you're early in your career, it can easily start with people who you know well. They could be people that you maybe went to university with. They could be colleagues that you work with. But it requires an open dialogue about what you're trying to do. And I think that exercise that Liv, I think the speaker just before that, her name is eluding me, talked about, and like deciding who you are and what you are trying to do. And then what Liv talked about as far as your career is concerned, having an understanding of what that is. And it doesn't need to get you all the way to retirement. I tell people, if you're 2 or 3 years in your career, 5 years in your career, you may not know what the storyline is when you're retiring, but you should at least have an idea of what your 3 to 5 year prospect is. And when you can have that conversation with people around you, they can be thinking, oh, okay, well, here's things that I see that, you would be really great at. Here's some things where maybe you want to have a little bit of insight and work on, whether it's training, emotional intelligence, relationship building, industry, being able to make sure that you're very clear about what those things are. And it may start out fuzzy at first, and that's okay. But you also want to make sure that you're making those connections and building those relationships with people that might be in the second or third rung out from you. So maybe it's the recruitment team that you worked with to get a role. I like to send emails to say, hey, how you doing? Thanks. This is how things are going. Let's have a coffee. because their ear is to the ground on the industry. They may have helped you get the role. So they kind of have an understanding of what you can do and where your strong skills are. So they can be aware of like where things may open up that fit you. They also might be people that you meet at professional events just like this, people that you meet on LinkedIn. But understanding that back and forth dialogue is really critical for them to really be helpful at the BOD level. If I didn't make sure that our reporting and documentation to the board got to them on time and really helped them understand what we're experiencing day to day, our headwinds, our pitfalls, our challenges, they wouldn't be set up for success to really give us that insight that we're looking for. So making sure that you're making time to have those conversations, and it's more than just networking, because networking, you're kind of like building people that you know who might have different roles. It's really zeroing in on those key people that can be part of your committee, and your committee can be 6 people, 8 people, 12 people. You don't want it to be too huge, because you want people who are kind of on the inner circle, people who know not just the things you're trying to do professionally, but also personally, because you want people to understand the type of environments you want to be in, the type of impact you want to have, the type of work life balance you're looking for, whether you want to be remote, whether you want to be around people. So you don't necessarily have all of those conversations with everyone in your network. And then they have to be someone close enough that you can actually talk about where you might really be challenged. There are people in my board of directors that I can just call up and say, I need a complete mulligan. Like, I need to do that all over again. I failed at it. It was horrible. And you may not want to do that with some people in your network where they're potentially where you're trying to work next. They may be somebody you're trying to get, an opportunity or a gig or, a contract with. So, having that distinction about people who are in the inner circle versus people who are in your network is really critical. And being able to trust them with that vulnerability. Like, hey, I'm feeling insecure right now. I'm feeling like I'm having imposter syndrome. Their board should be able to be someone that you go to and say, okay, I know I'm doing the right thing, but I'm having a little bit of a challenge. And I think that's affecting how successful I am being. It's affecting how I'm coming across. And people who can gauge that, hey, you're doing fine. This is in your head. Yes, your slip is showing. This is impacting how you're coming across. One of the things that I recently had a conversation with someone on my board of directors was, I'm overwhelmed. I don't have time. I can't get to XYZ. And he asked a couple of questions, and he was like, you're the type of person who likes to be accessible. You're the type of person who likes for you to have one-on-ones and talk to everyone. You strive to be the leadership you sometimes did not have. Someone who is accessible, someone who can get personal with people, someone who's available, no matter what role, what rank you are. So I have a tendency that if you're even the entry level person, you send me a note and you want to have coffee, I'm like looking at my assistant and said like, hey, make it happen. And he was like, you're going to have to balance that a little bit because you can't do all of that. But he understands that's part of my character. That's part of my brand. I was that woman coming up in my career and seeing other people in power who wouldn't speak to me, who wouldn't give me the time of day. So having that board member, whether it's a friend who's seen you all throughout your career or a colleague, a past colleague that's become in that inner circle for that board of director role, being able to know that and to be able to give you advice that you can actually want to take and figure out how there's some stretch for you, because he knew it was going to be a stretch for me to say no, but he was like, this is what you will have to do. If you're on your way to that C-suite role, I'm very clear about what my storyline is when I'm retiring and the C-suite roles I'm aspiring to. I know I won't be able to take every call. I won't be able to sit with everyone, but I will be able to still do those things. But I will just have to find the balance. Another thing is, having people that you can spend some personal time with. It doesn't always have to be work. I have a group of people in my board of directors where we actually went away for a weekend. We just went away one night. We, did some wind down and wine, we call it. We had some wine and we whined about work. But there are rich and insightful conversations that happen in those moments about things that you might miss. And we've built that trust where we can have inside information, and we're not all at the same company, but it's like the headwinds we're seeing in the industry, the challenges that we're seeing with the economy. Those are things where when you finally step away from work and you let your guard down a little bit, you can start having some honest and real conversations about, hey, maybe I need to pivot sooner, or maybe I need to be in this role longer than I expected. There are things you can be able to say to your board members that you might necessarily not say to other people in your network, in your professional network. Even if you have a partner or a spouse, there's sometimes you'll bounce them off of your board of directors before you necessarily come home and say, hey, I think I'm going to change roles. I think I'm going to change industries. I think I'm going to change my career. And they can help be that support for you to say, hey, you know what? I think you're doing the right thing for your career and for your professional development. We can give you some guidance based on our own experience being in those same places and spaces over time about how that's going to impact your personal. But at least we can back you and support you and say, hey, I think you're coming in a little bit on the left on this one. I think this might be fear. This might be, you're frustrated, or, yeah, you're doing the right thing. I support this. Let me find out more. Let's have a conversation. Let's dissect this even further. And that's really how the board can really help you. And so, what I also want to talk about, kind of the last thing I want to kind of like really, really share is your board of director should grow and change over time with you. You can add people in, and then there are people who may just organically kind of like shift out, maybe to an outer ring. Maybe they move away, maybe their industry changes. I know for a long time, I was in a lot of government roles, and my board had a lot of government folks in it. But over time, when I moved to private sector, the pace, the budgets, the teams, the focus on revenue, because I was in public health before, it changed. And I needed others who were in private sector to be part of that board of directors now. And I still have connections with those colleagues, but a lot of those conversations about the day-to-day have shifted. Like we check in, we support each other, we congratulate each other. But you have to make it make sense. If you move from a business role and now are in a technology role, how are you making sure that you have people with technology experience in your board of directors? It's okay to still have people who are in the business side, who maybe had some government experience, but you got to make sure that you're bringing people along that can really speak to the industries that you're in, and have some experience in the past that you have. So some pointers on board of directors and making kind of like that right mix. People maybe in the HR departments that you've worked in. I love to build those relationships, people in talent acquisition and HR, because those are great insights to have when you're negotiating salary, and they understand the markets out there. So you can go back to them and say, hey, where should I be looking for right market information? Because I'm going to be negotiating a salary. And people in your board of directors should be people that you should be able to talk about negotiating salary. It's not always going to be your friends or your family members. You need to be able to go to somebody who has that insight, so we can be smart, because we know that's already a challenge for women, especially in technology. People who are in the recruitment staff, people who are old bosses, people that you might have went to school with in similar studies, and they went maybe to different companies, people who are in markets that you're interested in going to. And again, using people that might be in your network to connect you with someone else. But again, you've got to build that trust and build that understanding of who they are. And it should be a give and take. You should be making sure you're showing interest in what they do. And they may not have you necessarily as their board of directors, but that's okay. And you probably can have that conversation to be like, hey, you know what? If there's any insight that I can be giving you, please let me know. I always make sure that I'm checking in with myself to make sure I'm not going in and just sucking everyone else's energy when I need it. And I'm like, hey, what can I do for you? How can I help you? How are things going? You know, I heard you were getting married, or great on that promotion, or I'm considering this professional organization. You know, what are some that you belong to? So those are just some ways that you can actually build and make sure that it continues to grow with what the needs are that you have. So I wanted to stop there to see if there's any questions. It's something I'm clearly passionate about, but I'll punt it over to you, Anna, to see if there's any questions from the group.
Thank you so much, Dilauli. That was a really wonderful talk. Thank you for sharing your experience. And I really loved what you said. You strive to be a leader you didn't have. And I think that this is really beautiful, because sometimes when we didn't have somebody's support, we really know what is missing. And we kind of sometimes even compensate because we know how it is important,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
When, you know, the managers that you have were not helping you when you needed their help, when you got your first job, you didn't know how to find a mentor, right? So, and here we have a couple of questions. How do you compensate these people for the board of directors?
Well, the good thing about having your own board of directors, there's no compensation monetarily. But when I talked about making sure that there's some give and take, that's the compensation. So sometimes people in my board of directors may call and ask for insight that I can share. You know, it might be information about, data companies. I work for Equifax, we're a data company. So maybe there's some insight that I can provide there. Being in planning and execution, project management, operations, and communications. Maybe there's insight I can provide there. Maybe they're looking to hire someone. They're looking for a good candidate. So that's how you compensate. That give with the give and take is the compensation. Being a reference sometimes. So those are ways that you can make sure that it's worthwhile for those other people that are in your board of directors.
Thank you. And here you briefly shared on different events where you can find your personal board of directors. So how do you have a conversation about asking someone to be on your board of directors?
So you might have people in your board of directors now, and you just haven't been using this language. And hopefully, some of the things I've shared regarding really making sure that they can be the insight for you to help grow your career. Where are you trying to go? What companies are you looking at? Maybe they can tell you that's not a company you want to go to. Or, I hear great things about women in leadership at that company. Or people that can help with, negotiations of salary, or maybe you're considering leaving a company and you can just run those ideas by that person. If you have those people already, maybe it's just a formal conversation to say, hey, you're part of my board of directors. And I've said that to people just to say, like, I appreciate your feedback. And I do see you as part of my board of directors. And this is what I get from this relationship. It gives them a sense of pride. And it also gives them a little bit more responsibility when they do give you feedback to say, she's going to take this. She's actually going to try to implement this, or she's going to give me pushback and feedback about why she doesn't think she agrees with this. And so I'll at least know where it's coming from, because I'm going to get more insight about how she operates and how she ticks. So it's not a far stretch from people that might be in your network. It's just a smaller subset, and there's a level of vulnerability and trust that goes with the board of director versus your just overall professional network.
Yeah, thank you. And how many people should be on your board of directors?
I have about 8 to 10 people in that board of directors, and they all provide different things. And some of them I communicate with more often than others. Some I'm in a constant text stream with. Others I see every few months. Others we actually have check-ins on my calendar. I'm a big proponent of scheduling your professional development and your networking. It is in my calendar. I tell my assistant to guard it with her life. And that might just be responding to an email, going on LinkedIn and seeing my messages, and saying, hey, I need to check in with so and so. I wonder if they got that role that they were looking for that I provided them, and a reference for. That's that compensation. Make sure it's a two-way. But making sure that you have that conversation to say, like, I do consider you on that inside. I do consider you part of my board of directors. And so there's a little pride and accountability that comes with that when you talk to people in your network who have that special focus. But that's about 10 people for me.
So 8 to 10 people. Yeah, thank you. And here is a beautiful comment from one of our speakers today, Erin. She said, setting a goal for 2023, building my diverse board of directors. Love that, the lovely, powerful concept to be applied to us as professional. Thank you so much, Delavely. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your experience. I think this was a really powerful topic and a very important one. So we're really glad that you were able to join us and to share your knowledge, your experience, your insights, and to take questions from our audience. I think it's important to also have, this interaction real time and live, and also to be able to help others who might need our help.
Well, thank you so much, Anna. I think you've always been a cheerleader of mine, so I appreciate it. I love what you're doing. I'll stick around a little bit longer to hear some of the speakers coming up. But reach out to me on LinkedIn. There's some articles out there about this. There's some books out this I can share as well. So very passionate about this because I know I wouldn't be where I am now without the board of directors I've had over the last 10 or 15 years.
Thank you. And I will share your LinkedIn, or you will drop your LinkedIn in the chat, wherever feels more comfortable to you. So thank you so much, Lovely, and have a great day.
Thank you.